and someone will return your call. Thank you and enjoy your day.
At the tone, please record your message.
Good day. This is Charlene Blake calling yet again, and we have not received any communication from the Premier of Newfoundland Labrador regarding the issues of misconduct with Workplace NL. I have a feeling that everyone's sitting down going, oh, you know what? This is not a Premier issue. Yes, it is a Premier issue, because the Premier has a minister responsible for Workplace NL, and Workplace NL is guilty of misconduct right up to the CEO and the lawyers that are there. So the responsible minister should be admitting and realizing and acting on the fact that these reports are honest, they're correct, they should not be acceptable, and he is going to be responsible for holding these people accountable for misconduct. We have looked through the file again over the weekend. Dustin has recorded videos on TikTok where they misrepresented the fact that we moved back to Newfoundland in 2019 because the commission rate that they'd put him on was the maximum compensable without any considerations. So they just applied it without any circumstances discussed, and it was unfair, and we couldn't pay rent. But yet, the notes absolutely make it look like it was because he was no longer able to return back to his job here in Fort McMurray, which is misleading, and it was not how they were explained what was happening. They were directly told that the reason we were moving back to Newfoundland and Labrador is because the compensation rate that Dustin was given, which was half of his actual earnings at the time that the reoccurrence happened, could not cover our rent payments, which was unfair. They immediately had to address this, and they didn't. They just decided to say, oh, it's because of the job. No, it was not because of the job. It was because of their decision not to weigh in the circumstances, which was covered underneath the section of the Act that talks about applying the maximum compensable. It says, shall be considered not to exceed the maximum compensable. Shall be considered. There was no consideration. They just applied it. They did not care about the unfair results. They covered it up by saying it was because he didn't have a job here in Fort McMurray if his knee was unstable. Then there's the issue that I did tell Kimberly Doyle that she was digging for dirt, and I proved that she was digging for dirt because Greg Brown, the medical doctor that was given Dustin's information, he did not make the decision based on the original ER report and the reoccurrence ER report and the fact that they matched and proved that it was a ligament injury. And then months later, it was proven that it was actually a ligament issue, which was the ACL. The only thing that made her get a different outcome after like 7 to 9 weeks of waiting for her to dig for all this dirt was the fact that the physiotherapist in Newfoundland Labrador assumed it was a meniscus, and when Dustin seen a surgeon here in Fort McMurray, they also assumed it was a meniscus. Meniscus is not even a ligament, it's cartilage. So the original diagnosis, the reoccurrence diagnosis, the symptoms all matched, and the MRI eventually matched to prove it all. But yet, Kimberly Doyle approved it after ages of digging for dirt based on a meniscus assumption when it was originally like a ligament. There is no denying what's happening. There's no denying that it was based on Dustin not being given his proper compensation. There is enough weight of evidence in his file to prove that that's what they were focused on. Because when we moved back to Newfoundland, they also cut him 3 times from his loss of earnings compensation that was illegally put at the maximum compensable anyway, but they illegally cut him 3 times and reinstated it immediately after they were called out on it. Then there's more issues regarding his return to work, and honestly, we put in a request for Workplace NL to work with us to correct all of these right from the beginning of the file. And then they comes back and tells us that if we feel his health information is incorrect, then they can correct that. That's not correct.
You have reached the maximum time permitted for your recording. If you are satisfied with your message, press 1. To send your message